Greetings and welcome back to room 303 AP English, the Roberts Lectures. We are now in the poetry section, and we turn to Dorianne Laux' The Life of Trees, her 2003 offering. Laux, born in '52, is a great American poet. She did win the Pushcart Prize and nominated for the National Book Critics Award for Poetry. Now, the brilliance of this poem is that we're going to continue with a word picture we've seen regularly in lots and lots of texts. The study of trees and the ways in which trees serve as one of those powerful metaphors for the existence of life. Let's enjoy the study now of the life of trees. The pines rub their great noise into the spangled dark. They scratch their itchy boughs against the house, and the mystery of that moan translates into drudgery of ownership. Time to drag the ladder from the shed, climb onto the roof with a saw between my teeth, cut those suckers down. What's reality, if not a long, exhaustive cringe from the blade, the teeth? I want to sleep and dream the life of trees. Beings from the muted world who care nothing for money, politics, power, will, or right, who want little from the night, but a few dead stars going dim, a white owl lifting from their limbs, who want only to sink their roots into the wet ground and terrify the worms, or shake their bleary heads like fashion models or old hippies. If they could speak, they wouldn't. Only hum some low green note, roll their pine cones down the empty streets, and blame it with a shrug on the cold wind. During the day, they sleep inside their furry bark, clouds shredding like ancient lace above their crowns, sun, rain, snow, wind. They fear nothing but the hurricane and fire, that whipped bully who raises up and becomes his own dead father. Then the young ones bend, and the old know they may not make it, go down with the power lines sparking, broken at the trunk. They fling their branches, forked sacrifice to the beaten earth. They do not pray. If they make a sound, it's eaten by the wind. And though the stars return, they do not offer thanks, only ooze a sticky sap from their rounded, concentric wounds, clap the water from their needles, strengthen their spines, and breathe again. Now, no question, the connections here between the human, the sylvan, the arborean life are self-evident. And yet, I want to pay attention to the genius in which Locke is able to move from tree to speaker and then back to tree. Notice we begin with the trees and a simple situation, large pine tree growing, overgrowing, we might say, into the house. So notice you have that juxtaposition of the natural versus the contrived, the civilization versus nature, which is, of course, a dualism we're all together familiar with in our studies in 303, from William Blake and his Songs of Innocence, Songs of Experience, of course, all the way to T.S. Eliot and Four Quartets. Notice, though, we've got then the interloper of the speaker when he says, it's time. I got to climb up on the ladder, I got to climb to the roof, and I've got to saw those suckers, notice his idiomatic use of the word suckers here, down, right at line 9. And then line 10 begins with the philosophic inspection. What's reality if not a long, exhaustive cringe from the blade, the teeth? And that's a pivotal line because that's kind of the fulcrum of the poem. In other words, in the very moment that one is climbing up the ladder to get onto the roof, to cut off branches from this tree, there is this sense of what all this means. This action of course, taking off, branches of a pine tree, but as well the recognition that trees somehow symbolize powerfully existence, our existence, and the rest of the world. Then there is that longing, I want to sleep and dream the life of trees. And of course here we're to the title, beings from the muted world who care nothing for money, politics, power, will, or right. Later, these same trees will care nothing at line 28, 29, 30 about sun and rain and snow and wind. In other words, the tree becomes symbolic of that which can withstand. Why? Well, obviously, the roots, sinking those roots into the wet ground, terrify the worms or shake their bleary heads. It's an interesting simile, like fashion models or old hippies. And why choose those two? Models and hippies normally don't go together in the same line to reference trees, especially the old pine tree. And then the speculative observation. If trees could speak, and of course you can obviously find any number of biologists that will say, oh no, trees do speak, and for the Tolkien fans in the house, we know all about talking trees, don't we, and the power of the idea of a talking tree. If they could speak, they would hum some low green note, roll their pine cones down the empty streets, and blame it with a shrug on the cold wind. Obviously, the personification now in play. During the day, they sleep inside their furry bark, clouds shredding, and then again a beautiful simile, like ancient lace above their crowns. And then, of course, the repetitions, the sun, the rain, the snow, the wind. They fear nothing but the hurricane, and the fire, the whipped bully, of course, who raises up and becomes his own dead father. Then we have the notion of aging. The young trees, the old trees. The young trees bend and bend, and the old know they may not make it. We think, of course, of Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching. You can go and find our lectures on that as well, right? That idea of a bending sapling is able to survive the wind, that the old, rugged, stiff tree sometimes can't, right? Finally, the observation that will remind us of Whitman's, I think I could turn and live with the animals. They do not pray. If they make a sound, it's eaten by the wind. And though the stars return, they do not offer thanks. Only ooze a sticky sap. Notice all the S sounds, right? From their roundish concentric wounds. The wound, of course, that he's about to apply to the tree, or the speaker is, whether it's a he or she. Clap the water with their needles, straighten their spines, and breathe again. Of course, this breathing again takes us to the idea of photosynthesis, and it's a brilliant way to remind us as well of the interconnectivity, the symbiosis, of course, of life. And let's start there, right? The life of trees is, in fact, the life of all living things. And, of course, another major message, a very transcendental message, is obviously what Thoreau was teaching us as well. There's so much to be learned from nature if we have the ability to look, right, to study. At 2b, well, the extended metaphor is where we're concentrating, and of course word choice here is as well brilliant as we've pointed out already. At 3a, well, I think there's so many different texts that come to mind. W.B. Yeats sailing to Byzantium, an aged man is but a paltry thing, a tattered coat upon a stick, unless soul clap its hands and sing. We're singing in this poem as well, right? Of course, how about Hopkins' Spring and Fall? Marguerite, who are you? What are you crying for? You think you're crying because of the falling of the leaves, but you're actually crying for yourself. It is you that you weep for. Finally, at 3b, a couple of questions, and try to relate this in some way to you. Think about this one. What tree are you most like? Here it's pine trees. If you had to choose to be a tree, which one would it be and why? And finally, why is getting old so hard? No pun intended here in terms of hard, brittle, hard, inability to bend so easily. Why is that the case? And how can we maybe learn from nature and, of course, from the study of trees? Whitman has a lot to say about trees, doesn't he, in his Song of the Open Road, right? And why is it that you walk under some trees and you just never are the same again? What is up with that? Or walk past them, we might say. I hope that you'll be drawn to more of Locke's brilliant work. Thank you.